Hi everybody. For today we have a pretty quick easy video that we're going to be taking a look at the area of squares and the area of rectangles. I would guess that for a lot of you this is something that you might already know how to do. But regardless, we're going to be taking a look at the formulas that we're going to use to find the area of a square and the area of a rectangle. Now, just a reminder, when we're talking about the area of a shape, sometimes I think of it as how much it would take, how much of some material, maybe that's how much paper or how much paint or how much tile or how much carpet, how much of some material would it take to cover that polygon or that shape, right? So when we're looking at area, we're looking at how much does it take to entirely cover a certain shape in some material. We hear about area a lot in the construction trades. If you're talking about the area of a house or the square footage of a house, that's a measurement of area. If you're buying materials, you oftentimes buy materials according to the area that you need to cover, whether it's whether it's you're buying carpet and you need to cover a certain number of square feet in your house, or whether it's you are um, laying an asphalt driveway and you have to know you're going to be paying by the square foot or something like that. So area comes up, and being able to calculate the area of a shape is a pretty important math skill. So we're going to start today by looking at two pretty basic and related shapes, squares and rectangles. Now technically, we might remember that a square is a rectangle. It's just a rectangle that's also a rhombus. So you could think of the definition or the formula for finding the area of these two shapes as really the same thing, but there's also kind of a simplified version of the area formula for a rectangle that we use for a square. So let's take a look at that first. If we're looking at a square, so we have a shape where all four sides are the same and all four angles are the same, and we also know that since they will be the same and add up to 360 and there's four of them, that means that they're all 90. So we're looking at a square here. The area of a square, to calculate the area of your square, you just take the side length and you square it. So if this shape had a side length of 6, so in other words, if all of these sides were 6 units, then the area of this shape would be 6 squared. Now remember, when you do squared, you're not multiplying the 6 by 2, you're multiplying the 6 times itself. So we would be looking at 36 square units. If we were looking at inches, if I were looking at inches for my unit here, then my unit on my area would be inches squared, or sometimes you'll hear it called square inches, right? So that's the real simple definition for the area of a square. You just take the side and you multiply it times itself. For the area of a rectangle, its area equals, and a lot of you have probably heard this before, as length times width. I'm going to write it instead using two other terms because we're going to see these terms pop up in other area formulas. And I'm going to say that the area of a rectangle will be equal to the base times the height, or technically the length of the base times the length of the height. So if I'm looking at a rectangle, again, I'm looking at a shape where I know there are four right angles, and I know opposite sides are congruent, but not necessarily all the sides congruent. So a shape that looks something like that. The base and the height are going to be on this, they're kind of synonymous with length and width if you've ever used that formula. The base would be maybe this side right here, and the height would be this side right here. So if I want to take the area of this shape, I would do this side times this side. So let's grab another color here. Let's call the base over here, let's call that 8 inches. That color doesn't show up very well. Let me switch to another one. 8 inches, and we'll say the height is 3 inches. So to find the area of this shape, I'm going to take the base measurement times the height measurement. That'll be 8 times 3, and it'll be 24 square inches. Right? 24 square inches for the area of this rectangle. And that's it. Those are the two formulas that you'll need to know for this section. They're pretty straightforward. Again, you probably used them before. Maybe not with this terminology of base and height. You might have used length and width before. But for reasons that'll become clear as we get further into this chapter, you may want to know it as base times height. Now I have one example that I want to take a look at because the examples of finding the area of a square and rectangle they're not too tricky, but I do want to take a look at this example down here where we have what's called a complex polygon. And a complex polygon is one that's made up of a number of other polygons kind of stuck together, if you will. And so for this example, we're finding the area of this complex polygon that's made up of 3 rectangles stuck together. We have rectangle that I labeled H, one that I labeled F, and one that I labeled G. And so we have to find the area of this entire figure. In other words, how much stuff would it take to cover this entire figure? And so the way we're going to do this is we're going to find the area of each individual rectangle, and then we're going to add those areas together. So let's start by finding the area of rectangle H. Now it's a rectangle, so we need to know the base and the height of this rectangle in order to find its area. So if I look over here, base doesn't always have to be along the bottom. I know I wrote it along the bottom here, and when we hear the word base, we might think of something that's at the bottom of something. But in this case, the base could be this measurement up here at the top. Because as we know, if this is a rectangle, the opposite sides will be congruent. So if this is 4 up here, we could kind of slide that 4 down here, and we could say that side right there would also be 4 inches, if you like that better. So I know that my base is going to be 4, and my height is going to be 10. So base times height would be 4 times 10, which is 40 square inches. For F, I'll do a quick color change here. For F, I know that I have a 3-inch measurement up here, which means I also have a 3-inch measurement down there. If I have a 7-inch measurement over here, I also have a 7-inch measurement over here. So the height of my F rectangle, or my base times my height of rectangle F, is going to be 3 times 7, which is 21 square inches. So we got H done, we got F done, and that takes us down to G. And G is a little bit trickier because I can see in this picture it gives me the base of G right away. So when I'm doing base times height for rectangle G, I know it's going to be 14 times something. But it doesn't look like right away it gives me what this measurement is here or this measurement right here. So I have to kind of do a little detective work, and I have to think about what do I know about some of these other shapes. And if I look over here at H and I see that this side over here is 10, it would mean that from here down to here, that would also be 10. And it gives me a measurement for this entire side. This 15 is for this entire side of this complex polygon, from up here all the way down to here. That's all 15. So if I do a quick little subtraction, I realize that if the whole thing is 15 and this upper part of it here is 10, then it would mean that this part down here would be 5 inches. And so would this. This part over here would also be 5 inches. So I can see now that my height, if my base is the 14 down here, then my height would be 5. So my area, 14 times 5, would be 70 square inches. Now I've got each of the individual rectangles calculated. I got each of their areas calculated. So now the last thing I need to do is just add all these together. 40 plus 21 plus 70. Well, that's 40 and 21 is 61. And 61 and 70 is 131, and my units will still be square inches. So that's the area of this complex polygon over here. Okay, folks, that's about it for this video. Area of a square, side squared. Area of a rectangle, base times height. And just apply those two formulas, and you can probably find the area of a lot of different shapes. So we'll see you next time.